was teaching printmaking at Norfolk State University.
I was working as a professional painter, selling my watercolor landscapes.
My job was to support live performances, workshops, and residencies with Arts for Learning.
I was teaching at the Governor's School for the Arts.
My band, The New Mutiny, was playing regional shows and getting ready to go into the studio.
When the shutdown came, it was at the busiest time of the year for Arts for Learning. So many performances, so many workshops, everything got canceled.
And then as the weeks went by, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, nobody's gonna be buying fine art right now. I've got a lease now with this studio space that I'm responsible for. A lot of my income was coming from classes and from selling art.
We were planning on not being super active on the road and going into the studio anyway. We had a couple of sessions done with our producer, but he has his grandmother living with him. He works out of his house, the studio set up at his house. So obviously she's older, so we had to kind of put the brakes on that as well.
I was teaching a printmaking workshop at Norfolk State University, and by the end of spring break, they had sent out notices that classes would continue virtually. I had to create a project that they could do at home using some materials they might have that represented printmaking processes. For me, it was a challenge because it gave me a reason to kind of work in my studio and come up with some new ideas and explore some new things that I could even do in my own work. And it also, I think they had some fun just exploring, not expecting to create, a super fine finished piece of artwork.
So we wanted to find a way to create some paid work for the artist, and then also thinking of the students and the young people. All of the programs that they were going to be consuming were all canceled, and wouldn't it be nice if somebody just kept pressing on to create some art? The funny thing is I started in January and the shutdown happened in March. It was still a brand new job, so I hadn't even really settled into the position before it completely changed.
One of my main jobs as an artist is to be a creative problem solver. So it's, how am I going to move forward? And so I've been consistently doing Zoom classes since then. And it's been awesome that it has opened up this where I actually get to connect with students that wouldn't be able to physically come into my space. But it took me a while to just get over the fear of the technology of it and realize that COVID's not going anywhere, so I need to figure out how to evolve with it and make my business still work.
Teaching online is so much more exhausting than teaching in person. You wouldn't think it is, but a lot of times it feels like being a stand-up comedian that's just bombing, like performance after performance after performance, because when the screens were black you got nothing, but even now when you have their faces there's just this mask with a lot of them, and we get them in the afternoon, so they're already sick of Zoom.
Now my days are very different as I work in kind of the video fulfillment, and we've been creating new offerings so that we could do virtual programs. I'm not a skilled videographer. I'm watching YouTube all the time about how to create a 3-point lighting effect and how not to shoot things out of focus as I was doing, and figuring out what I was doing as I was going along.
As far as playing live,
It's becoming an issue.
Yes,
It wasn't immediately.
yeah.
We've done a couple of the online shows, and it's cool because it still gives us an avenue to connect with people that want to hear the music, but it's bittersweet. On the one hand, you get to still play rock and roll, and people get to hear it, but it's not the same. You can't feel it, man. You can't feel it.
I was still wanting to create, but I just couldn't create in the ways that I was normally looking to do. And so I had to remind myself that, what I created didn't have to necessarily be a finished work that was seen by the public. I kind of went back to, my roots of, going in my sketchbook and either thumbnailing or just putting my emotions down on paper. And it allowed me to just, get whatever those energies out. And, it made me feel good about the fact that I was creating, and I was letting it go.
So I had decided I would give away free art just to kind of brighten our day, or to kind of say a little piece of connection, we're all in this together. So I made these 4x6 watercolor paper, original paintings. So I did my Instagram live and it like blew up. I ended up doing 675 paintings and I had to cut off. So it was like a much bigger task than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm glad that I did it. And I had so many people reach out and just say like how much it meant to them. And I don't know, like a connection during this time based around something creative, based around art.
The plants, it's like portraiture for me. The one that you can see in the back is a weed, and there are all these different plants that we just step on or mow over or walk by. We don't know what they are and we don't really care, but that plant takes up that space. I like to equate that to how we look at each other when we're walking down the street, how we don't look at each other. I'm guilty of it too. I'm constantly trying to better myself and slow myself down to really take a look at people as individuals and not lump them into these categories. I feel that's part of the reason why we have not been able to address this pandemic as a united country.
So I miss the team, I miss being in the schools and seeing students' reactions to performances, but I'm proud of Arts for Learning and the fact that nobody's given up.
I think I'm in a pretty good space now that I got a sense of how this nation is moving and where I fit in it as an artist.
We got some good music recorded. As soon as we got out of the studio, it was kind of like, okay, we can't play shows. I guess we're going to start writing. So like, we're poised to repeat the same cycle, and hopefully the year doesn't repeat the same way in 2021.